Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Recap Flicks. Today, I'm going to recap a 2020 comedy horror movie titled Vampire vs. the Bronx. The movie begins with a woman, Vivian, getting out of a taxi and entering a salon to get her nails done. She tells the store owner, Becky, that she just moved to the neighborhood a little while back and she is happy to have found her shop. Becky informs Vivian that Vivian's nail will be the last she does because she is selling her shop to a real estate group. More new properties. Becky also says Mornew has been buying properties all over the Bronx. Just as Vivian is done and leaving, Mornew's broker Frank arrives to finalize the deal with Becky. After signing the documents that transfer ownership, a vampire appears behind Becky and kills her while Frank watches on. Elsewhere, one of the Bronx residents, Miguel, is pasting flyers about the block party he is organizing. The following morning, Miguel keeps pasting the posters around the neighborhood. A local corner store owned by a man, Tony, because the store is under threat of closing. Soon afterward, Miguel meets up with his friend Bobby at Tony's. As the duo talks outside, they run into Miguel's crush, Rita, and her friends. Miguel invites the trio to the party, and they promise to come only if they get to have fun. While walking through the street, they discover that Becky's store is boarded up, thus indicating that Morney has purchased it. Later that night, Bobby and Miguel meet up with their friend Luis, while the trio is discussing a gang leader, Henny, and his boys drive by the kids. Henny tells Bobby to see him later because he has a job for him. After Henny's departure, Miguel asks Bobby what his business with Henny is, but Bobby shrugs the question off. Shortly afterward, they get to the courthouse and discover that Morney Group has also purchased it. Miguel suggests that they continue pasting posters throughout the neighborhood, but Bobby and Luis opt to go to Tony's place and play video games. After his friend's departure, Miguel pastes a flyer on one of Mornew's signboards. As he does so, a weird-looking man comes out of the courthouse, and Miguel quickly jumps on his bicycle and starts running away. While running, Miguel runs into one of Henny's boys, Slim. Annoyed for spilling his drink, Slim starts chasing Miguel until they reach a parking lot where Miguel manages to lose him. Just then, the man from the courthouse appears and confronts Slim. Slim points his gun at him, warning him to stay back. The man moves closer, and Slim can no longer move a muscle. The man, who is revealed to be a vampire, attacks Slim and terminates him. However, Miguel is hiding in a distance and sees everything that happened. The vampire senses him, and Miguel starts running again. Shortly afterward, Miguel arrives at Tony's and informs the group that a vampire just terminated Slim. He hasn't finished talking when the vampire arrives at the door. The boys quickly hide while Tony attends to him. The vampire buys a bottle of hand sanitizer and leaves. Tony and the boys visit the parking lot where Miguel claims that the vampire killed Slim, but they couldn't find anything. The following day, Miguel meets up with his friends and they go over to Tony's place. The group sees a Blade movie in order to know how to protect themselves against vampires. They also make out a list of everything that weakens or kills vampires. Luis tells the group that the vampires have a place where they sleep during the day, which is called a nest. He also lets it out that a vampire cannot enter your home or store without being invited. Soon afterward, the trio visit a Morney Properties office to attempt to find where the vampires rest during the daylight. At the office, Frank threatens the boys, stating that being from the Bronx, they could vanish and no one would notice. Before leaving the office, the boys manage to steal a purse from Frank's table. While going through it, they find a USB drive that contains the vampires' plans for a nest throughout the Bronx. They also find a skeletal key inside the purse. The trio realizes that the file is not big enough for evidence. Miguel suggests that getting a video of the vampires while resting will be a good idea. They make their way to the courthouse to find out if it's the vampire's nest. They enter the courthouse and see some coffins lying on the floor. Miguel opens, and the boys are surprised to see the vampire sleeping. They make a video recording of it so they can show the police. While doing so, Bobby's phone rings, waking the vampires, and the boys barely escape the building with their lives. Outside the courthouse, the trio is picked up for trespassing. Miguel tries to tell the residents that vampires are amongst them. He shows them the video recording, but he is laughed at when it only shows him opening an empty coffin. Trying so hard to prove his point, Miguel challenges Frank to step out into the sun. To his utmost surprise, Frank walks into the sun without getting hurt. Frank then requests the stolen purse and the USB back. Frank says he won't press charges because boys will always be boys. However, Frank soon realizes that the skeletal key is missing. It is revealed that Miguel kept the key to himself in the hopes that it means a lot to the vampires. Later on, Frank meets up with Henny and his boys. He gives them a contract of causing some ruckus in the neighborhood. He hopes this will prompt those who are stubborn to sell their properties will do so afterward. Shortly afterward, Luis calls Miguel and informs him that the reason Frank didn't burn up in the sun is that he is human. Luis says the vampires need a human to run errands for them during the day, with the promise of turning him into a vampire later on. Elsewhere, Henny comes over to Bobby's place. He asks him to follow him because he has a job proposition for him, and Bobby accepts. Miguel and Luis soon meet up in church for the evening mass. Up next, Vivian visits the bodega and tells Tony about her plans to cook for Miguel's block party. After having a short discussion with Tony, she prepares to leave, but Tony realizes that there is no reflection of her in the mirror and as well as the camera. Tony tries to contact Miguel, but Vivian attacks and terminates him. Back at the church, Miguel and Luis sneak into the sacristy to steal holy water. They manage to escape through the back, but are cornered by Rita. Back at Henny's place, Bobby discovers that Henny is working for Frank, and they are looking for Miguel. He finds a way to escape so he can warn his friends of the impending danger. Miguel, Louis, and Rita walk past Tony's place and discover that it has been boarded up. Bobby soon joins them, and the group manages to enter the store. Miguel picks up Tony's baseball bat and promises to eliminate the vampires. Just then, Henny and his boys arrive at the store. Miguel and his friends run out through the back but are confronted by vampires. They face the opposite direction and run as fast as they can. Henny and his boys, who are still chasing Miguel, run into the vampires and try to rob them. The gangsters shoot down the vampires, but a second later, the vampires are back on their feet. While Miguel and his friends are running away, they run into Vivian. She volunteers to take the kids home. Upon getting to Miguel's place, the group realizes that Vivian is a vampire when the holy water with them starts boiling. Vivian tells the boys to give her the key, and she will have mercy on them. It is revealed that Vivian is the commander of the vampires. Miguel goes close to her and spills holy water on her. The water burns Vivian and she quickly runs off. The group decides to stay indoors till the sun comes up. Later on, Frank is seen asking Vivian to turn him into a vampire, but she refuses. The next day, Miguel and his friends start preparing everything they need to attack the vampires. The group makes their way to the courthouse, but realizes that the coffins have been moved. They are about to leave when the holy water starts boiling. Miguel tells Rita to go back and get help while he and his friends try to locate the vampires. The trio follows the holy water's direction and soon finds the vampires hanging upside down in one of the rooms. Miguel pushes a stake into one of them and he disintegrates. Bobby also stakes another, leaving just Vivian and two other vampires who are now awake. Vivian sees Miguel's bag lying on the floor and finds the key in it. She uses the key to open a metal box that contains the ashes of the first vampire. She says she plans to use the ash to create more vampires and in order to grow an army. Miguel throws holy water on the vampires and tries to escape. One of the vampires holds on to Luis, but he throws holy bread into his mouth and he disintegrates. Frank stops the trio, but Bobby tells him that the vampires are only using him. Upon hearing this, Frank lets them go, but Vivian terminates him for it. Vivian and the other vampire starts chasing the boys, and Luis gets separated from the group. The other vampire catches up to Luis, but Luis manages to terminate him using his skateboard as a stake. Vivian also catches up to Bobby and Miguel. She incapacitates Miguel and is about to terminate him when Rita arrives with the residents armed with homemade weapons. A fight breaks out, which ends up with Miguel stabbing Vivian with Tony's bat, thus terminating her. 2 weeks later, Miguel passes by a mural in memorial of Tony on his way to the block party. He and his friends decide that they have grown to be good vampire hunters. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and drop a sub on the channel.